It's fairly prosaic nowadays to point out that the United States has the highest documented incarceration rate in the world. For every 100,000 citizens in America, 743 are incarcerated. That's 0.7%. At the end of 2009, over 7 million people in the U.S. were on probation, in jail, in prison, or on parole. That's 3.1% of the adult population. Do you, Mr. Audience, Mrs. Audience, Miss Audience, whatever, do you accept the idea that 3.1% of Americans are criminals? And if so, then why? Why are there so many more criminals in America than there are in any other country? The incarceration rate in Europe, on average, is just over 100 people per thousand. How do European countries manage to have such a small fraction of people in prison compared to us? In Japan, it's around 50 per 100,000. Why do we have 14 times as many criminals per 100,000 as Japan does? Why? America has less than 5%, this many fingers, of the world's population. And it has 25% of the world's prison population. This country of 300 million people on a planet of 7 billion people imprisons enough to make up 25% of the entire world's prison population. How do we justify that? How is that acceptable to anyone? Some say that the problem has to do with race. America has more black and Hispanic people than Europe, and therefore more crime. But does America have more black people than South Africa, where blacks make up 79.4% of the population, yet the incarceration rate is about half of our own? Does America have more Hispanics than fucking Mexico, where the incarceration rate is 200 per 100,000? The war on drugs was instituted by the Nixon administration in 1971. This was followed by a swift explosion in the prison population. Then, in 1984, the Sentencing Reform Act, which gave federal judges stricter sentencing guidelines, gave way to an even larger explosion in the prison population. I am now going to quote from a document published by the November Coalition, a group dedicated to ending the war on drugs. According to the data that they have compiled, drug arrests have more than tripled in the last 25 years, totaling a record 1.8 million arrests in 2005. Drug offenders in prisons and jails have increased 1,100% since 1980. Nearly 500,000 persons are in federal prison or local jail for drug offense, compared to an estimated 41,100 in 1980. Nearly 6 in 10 persons in prison for a drug offense have no history of violence or high-level drug selling activity. Why do we continue these failed policies that have bloated our prisons and turned our country into a police state? Why do we continue to incarcerate nonviolent offenders? Why do we so rarely hear a frank discussion of how bad this problem has gotten? Why will no courageous and principled man or woman rise up the political structure to tell the truth and work to end the drug war and repeal the Sentencing Reform Act? If you want to know why, all you have to do is follow the money. You see, there was a time in America when prisons were run by the government. A lot of people think they still are, but those people are dead wrong. Many prisoners in America are staying in prisons that are wholly owned and operated by publicly traded corporations. like Corrections Corporation of America. Put your hand on your heart, ladies and gentlemen. What is the Corrections Corporation of America? I'll let their website explain. Our company, the first of its kind, was founded in 1983. Our approach to public-private partnership in corrections combines the cost savings and innovation of business with the strict guidelines and consistent oversight of government. This has produced proven results for more than a quarter century. CCA designs, builds, manages, and operates correctional facilities and detention centers on behalf of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the United States Marshal Service, nearly half of all states, and nearly a dozen counties across the country. CCA benefits America by protecting public safety, employing the best people in solid careers, rehabilitating inmates, giving back to communities, and bringing innovative security to government corrections. All while consistently saving hard-working taxpayer dollars. That is the public face of the CCA. But in private, their rhetoric is just a little bit different. In a 10-K form submitted to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, CCA talks about some of the things that would pose a risk to their business. Anyone want to take a guess what they listed as their risks? That is to say, the things that they definitely do not want to happen? Well, you don't have to guess, because I have the excerpts right here. The demand for our facilities and services could be adversely affected by the relaxation of enforcement efforts, leniency in conviction or parole standards and sentencing practices, or through the decriminalization of certain activities that are currently prescribed by our criminal laws. For instance, any changes with respect to drugs and controlled substances or illegal immigration could affect the number of persons arrested, convicted, and sentenced, thereby potentially reducing demand for correctional facilities to house them. So here is the bazillion-dollar question that you, my beloved audience, must answer. How can they be focused on rehabilitating criminals, as they claim, if their business model is adversely affected by leniency in conviction or parole standards? If we end the war on drugs, we hurt the CCA and other private corrections companies. If we decriminalize marijuana or fix sentencing guidelines, we hurt the CCA and other private corrections companies. It's in the best interest of these companies and their shareholders, let's not fucking forget their precious goddamn shareholders, to keep the prison population high, to keep recidivism up, to push America towards tougher and tougher laws. Because the more people we imprison, the more money the private corrections industry makes. Corrections Corporation of America trades at around $20 a share on the stock market. They gave about $100,000 to federal candidates in 2006 through their political action committee, about 15% to Democrats, 85% to Republicans. They spent $2.46 million for lobbying in 2007 alone. CCA was also a major financial backer of the 2009 anti-immigration law in Arizona. And according to internal documents, CCA believes that imprisoning illegal immigrants will bring in, and I quote here, a significant portion of our revenues. So we have a problem in America. Too many people are being sent to prison for too long for incredibly dumb reasons. And we have a company, a for-profit company, that is lining Republican pockets with election money, that is spending millions of dollars every year in lobbying And they have a vested interest in not only making sure that we never end the drug war, never repeal the Sentencing Reform Act, never stop imprisoning nonviolent offenders, but they also have, remember this, a huge investment in pushing things in the opposite direction. They want more people in prison because their shareholders want more people in prison. Because to them, the freedom of a human being is nothing more than a commodity, a way for them to generate more revenue, more profit. Freedom and slavery should not be dictated and decided by a corporation's bottom line. I'm the Amazing Atheist.